2 years after Caspian Wren was rejected by the Alpha who was supposed to be his destined mate, he was standing in the doorway of a tavern storage room, watching 10 wolf pups destroy everything he owned. A leather ball rolled past his boot. 2 gray pups chased it across the floor, growling like they were fighting for a throne. Another pup was climbing a shelf. Caspian had told him not to climb at least 6 times that morning. A tiny black pup sat on Caspian's foot and made a weak, dramatic whimper. Caspian looked down. "Ember, you ate 12 minutes ago." Ember stared up at him with huge golden eyes and whimpered louder. Behind Caspian, Margot Thorne gave a dry laugh. Margot was the owner of the Border Tavern, a sharp-tongued beta woman in her early 50s who had given Caspian work and a room when he had nowhere else to go. She pretended she didn't care about the pups, but she was also the one who saved meat scraps, old blankets, and cracked bowls for them. "That little one stole dried meat from my kitchen yesterday," Margot said. "Don't let the sad eyes fool you." Caspian sighed. "They're not thieves. They're resourceful. They're criminals with soft ears," Margot said. "And they're outgrowing this room." Caspian looked at the chaos. Margot was right. The storage room had once held barrels and spare linens. Now it held 10 abandoned werewolf pups. Most of them were still more comfortable in wolf form than human form. Some were young alphas who had become unstable after trauma. Some were omega pups who had locked down their scent until they barely felt alive. Some were beta pups nobody had bothered to claim because ambitious packs didn't see value in them. To Caspian, they weren't useless. They were children. There was Ember, a tiny black pup who acted like Caspian's personal guard. Rumble, the brown pup who chewed bootlaces. Ash and Cinder, twin gray pups who could open simple locks if left unsupervised. Briar, a silver pup who growled at every shadow. The others had all come to him the same way, hungry, cold, frightened, and somehow certain that he was safe. Caspian had never understood why they kept finding him. He wasn't supposed to be special. The Stormcrest pack had made that clear 2 years ago. Marius Blackwood, his destined alpha, had said it in front of everyone. "Your scent is too faint. Your pheromones are weak. You cannot soothe an alpha. You cannot carry a strong bloodline. This bond is defective." Marius had rejected him publicly, and Caspian had left that night, believing something inside him was broken. Then the pups started coming. No maps, no escort, no reason to know his name. They simply appeared near the tavern, one after another, like they had followed something only they could feel. Before Margot could complain again, the sound downstairs changed. The tavern was usually loud with drunk customers, scraping chairs, and bad arguments. This was different. Heavy boots, several pairs moving together. Margot's expression sharpened. "That's not our usual crowd." Caspian quickly pulled the storage room door shut. "Stay here. Quiet." Rumble yipped. "I mean it." Caspian whispered, then followed Margot downstairs. Halfway down, he froze. 6 warriors stood inside the tavern entrance, wearing dark uniforms marked with the silver crest of the Northern Dominion. They weren't common guards. They moved like trained soldiers. But the man at the center took all the air from the room. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and dangerously calm. His black hair fell slightly past his collar, and his eyes were the color of winter storms. His scent reached Caspian from across the room, controlled but unmistakable. Pine smoke, cold air, and alpha power. Not just an alpha king. Margot leaned close and whispered, "That is Ronan Nightshade, ruler of the Northern Dominion. What is he doing in my tavern?" Ronan's gaze swept over the room, checking exits, people, threats. Then his eyes landed on Caspian. For one long second, he looked almost relieved. "I'm looking for someone," Ronan said. His voice was deep, rough, and tired. "A male Omega named Caspian Wren, rejected by Stormcrest Pack 2 years ago. Now living near the border and taking in orphan wolf pups." Caspian's stomach dropped. Margot stepped slightly in front of him. "And why would the Alpha King of the North care about a tavern worker feeding abandoned children?" Ronan did not look away from Caspian. Because they are not just abandoned children. They are pups who should not have survived alone. But they did, because they found him. Caspian forced himself to speak. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. Ronan said gently. They come to you, don't they? Pups with no family, no map, no reason to know where you are. They cross roads, forests, and pack borders because something in them knows you are safe. Caspian went still. Upstairs, behind the storage room door, one pup gave a muffled yip. Then another. Ronan's expression shifted, like that small sound confirmed everything. You are not a defective Omega, Caspian. Marius Blackwood was wrong. Caspian's throat tightened. Ronan continued carefully. Your scent was never meant to attract grown alphas. That is why Marius could not understand it. Your scent is for the lost. For pups who have been abandoned, orphaned, or broken by grief. In the old records, Omegas like you were called moon shepherds. Margot went silent. Caspian shook his head. That's not real. It is, Ronan said. And I have spent 8 months searching for one. Before Caspian could answer, a crash came from upstairs. Then tiny claws scratched against wood. A moment later, Ember appeared at the top of the stairs, having escaped the storage room. The black pup ran down, planted himself in front of Caspian, and growled at Ronan Nightshade like he could fight an alpha king with baby teeth alone. One guard moved. Ronan raised a hand, stopping him at once. Then he looked at Ember, not offended, but almost moved. A wounded pup does not protect someone like that unless that person is home. Caspian bent and lifted Ember into his arms. His voice came out quieter than he wanted. What do you want from me? Ronan's face became serious. My territory is full of orphaned pups after the frost fever. More than 400. We give them food, shelter, medicine, and protection. But they are still fading. Some will not eat. Some will not shift. Some have locked their scent so deeply our healers cannot reach them. He stepped closer, but kept his alpha pressure low. I came because I need your help. Caspian stared at him. 2 years ago, an alpha had called him useless in front of an entire pack. Now an alpha king stood in a border tavern, asking for him like he might be the only answer left. Then every pup upstairs went silent. Not playful silence. Listening silence. Ember lifted his head in Caspian's arms and turned toward the north-facing window. Behind the storage room door, the other pups began to whimper softly. Caspian looked north, and for the first time, beneath the noise of the tavern and the pounding of his own heart, he felt it. Hundreds of small, silent cries calling from the dark. Caspian did not answer Ronan immediately. He stood in the middle of Margot's tavern with Ember trembling lightly in his arms, the other pups quiet behind the storage room door upstairs, and the Alpha King of the Northern Dominion watching him like this decision mattered more than anything else in the room. For 2 years, Caspian had trained himself not to expect anything good from alphas. Expectation led to disappointment. Trust led to humiliation. He had learned that lesson the night Marius Blackwood rejected him in front of an entire pack and called him defective. So when Ronan said he needed him, Caspian's first reaction was not pride. It was caution. You have healers, Caspian said slowly. You have caregivers, warriors, resources. I have a storage room and a group of pups that barely listen to me. They listen, Margot said dryly. They just ignore instructions they don't like. Ronan's gaze stayed steady. We have everything needed to keep them alive. But they are not getting better. Caspian frowned. Explain. Ronan took a step closer, not enough to crowd him. His alpha scent remained controlled, almost deliberately softened. After the frost fever, we gathered orphan pups from multiple packs. They are fed, treated, and protected. But many refuse to eat. Some stay in wolf form for months. Some Omega pups have locked their scent completely. Alpha pups react with aggression to anyone who gets too close. Beta pups simply stop responding. Caspian's chest tightened. He had seen all of that before. Briar had arrived like that, growling at everything that moved. Ember had refused food for days and screamed if anyone touched him. "Why me?" Caspian asked. Ronan reached into his coat and pulled out a small piece of cloth. Because of this, Caspian hesitated, then took it. The scent was faint, almost nothing, but it was unmistakably his. Caspian froze. "One of the pups we rescued carried this scent," Ronan said. Then another. Then another. None of them knew each other. All of them had been alone, and all of them had followed this trail south. Margot's expression changed. They followed him. Yes. Caspian stared at the cloth. His scent had never been strong enough to hold an alpha's attention. That was what Marius had said. Too faint. Too weak. Not worth keeping. But these pups had followed it across distance and danger. Ronan's voice softened. "You are not a defective Omega, Caspian. Your scent was never meant for adult alphas. It is meant for lost pups. In old records, Omegas like you were called moon shepherds." Caspian shook his head immediately. "That sounds like a story, not something real." "I thought the same," Ronan said, "until I saw the pattern. Until I found you." A faint scratching sound came from the storage door. Then a small yip. Ronan glanced toward the stairs, and something in his expression shifted. "They're listening." "They always listen," Margot said. "They just pretend not to." Caspian looked between them, then back at Ronan. "What exactly do you want from me?" "Come to the Northern Dominion," Ronan said. "Bring your pups. See the shelters. Tell us what we are doing wrong. Help us fix it." Caspian let out a breath. "And your nobles will accept that?" "They will not," Ronan said plainly. "Some already oppose this. They believe I am chasing a myth. Others do not want an unknown Omega influencing the future of our pups." "That's honest." "I prefer honesty," Ronan replied. Caspian studied him for a moment. Ronan had not used alpha pressure. He had not ordered him. He had not even stepped too close. That alone made him different. "I have conditions," Caspian said. Ronan nodded at once. "Name them." "My pups stay with me. All of them. No separation, no training program forcing them away from me." "Agreed." "I decide what is safe for them." "Agreed." "If I go there and cannot help, I leave. No pressure, no debt." Ronan hesitated for half a second, then nodded. "Agreed." Caspian took a breath. "And no mating expectations. No bonding, no climbing. I am not going there to become part of your bloodline." The room went quiet. Even Margot raised an eyebrow. Ronan's answer came without delay. "Agreed. I am asking for your help, not your bond." Caspian watched him carefully. "And if your nobles push that anyway?" "They answer to me." There was no arrogance in his voice, just certainty. Caspian felt something shift slightly in his chest. Not trust, not yet, but something close to it. "I need time," Caspian said. "Dawn," Ronan said. "I cannot stay longer than that." After that, Ronan moved to a table with his guards. He did not pressure Caspian again. Margot followed Caspian upstairs. The moment the storage door opened, chaos returned. Rumble immediately jumped on Caspian's leg. Ash and Cinder ran in circles. Ember pressed against his side like he had never left. Margot leaned against the wall. "Well, he wants me to help hundreds of pups," Caspian said. And I could fail." Margot crossed her arms. "You could fail. But staying here forever because one alpha called you defective, that's not safety. That's hiding." Caspian sat down slowly, the pups gathering around him. Ember climbed into his lap. Briar settled near the door. Rumble chewed something she should not have. The others pressed close, warm and alive. These pups had found him not because he was strong, but because he stayed. "What if he's wrong?" Caspian said quietly. Margot shrugged. "Then you come back." and we continue this very chaotic, very illegal orphan operation." Caspian let out a small laugh. Then he looked toward the north-facing window. For a moment, everything went quiet. And there it was again, the pull. Faint, distant, but real. Hundreds of small, quiet cries waiting. Caspian pressed his hand against his chest. He had ignored it for years, told himself it was nothing, told himself he was imagining things. Now he knew it wasn't. By morning, he had made his decision. Ronan was already standing when Caspian came downstairs with Ember at his side. "I'll come," Caspian said. "But we do this my way." Ronan's expression softened just slightly. "Your way?" Caspian nodded. Behind him, the pups shifted. Then Ember suddenly turned toward the forest outside the tavern. He growled. Caspian froze, because the distant pull in his chest sharpened. Not far anymore. Close. Very close. Caspian looked toward the trees. "There's another one," he said quietly. "And this time the cry isn't waiting. It's fading." Caspian should have been packing. But instead, he was already moving toward the forest before anyone told him to stop. The pull in his chest had sharpened into something urgent, thin and fragile, like a thread about to snap. Ember stayed glued to his leg, low growls rumbling from his small body, while Ronan followed without hesitation, and one of his guards signaled two others to circle wide instead of closing in. No one questioned Caspian now. That alone told him something had already changed. "Stay back a little," Caspian said quietly as they crossed into the trees. "If the pup is scared, too many scents will push it deeper." Ronan nodded immediately and slowed his steps, pulling his alpha presence down until it barely touched the air. That level of control wasn't normal. Caspian noticed it even while focusing on the pull. The forest was damp with early light, branches dripping, ground soft underfoot. Caspian kept one hand pressed lightly against his chest, following the direction of the feeling instead of any sound. It came in waves, strong, then almost gone, then strong again. Like the pup was fading in and out. After several minutes, Ember stopped abruptly and crouched low. Caspian followed his gaze and saw it. Movement under a fallen tree, barely visible beneath tangled roots and dead leaves. He lowered himself slowly, keeping his posture small and non-threatening. "Hey," Caspian said gently. "I know you're there. I'm not going to drag you out. You can come when you're ready." No response. Only the faint smell of fear and starvation. "You don't have to trust me yet," Caspian continued. "Just don't stay hidden alone." Ember crept forward, then lay down near the edge of the roots, making himself as non-threatening as possible. That small gesture mattered more than anything Caspian could say. A weak sound came from beneath the tree. Then, slowly, painfully, a small russet-brown wolf pup crawled out. Caspian felt his chest tighten at once. The pup was thin, shaking, matted with dirt. One ear was torn. Around its neck hung a strip of cloth tied loosely, like someone had once tried to claim or mark it. Its legs trembled so badly it nearly collapsed after a few steps. Caspian didn't reach for it immediately. He placed his hand on the ground instead, palm up, waiting. The pup stared at him for a long moment, eyes dull with exhaustion but still alert enough to expect danger. Then it moved forward, just enough to press its nose against his fingers. The moment it made contact, its body gave out. A broken whimper escaped as it leaned into him. Caspian caught it carefully, pulling it against his chest. "You're okay," he whispered. "I've got you." Behind him, one of Ronan's guards let out a quiet breath. That pup shouldn't even be standing. Ronan stepped closer, still not enough to overwhelm the moment. His eyes dropped to the strip of cloth. "What pack?" Caspian glanced down. "I don't know." Ronan crouched slightly. "May I?" Caspian nodded. Ronan turned a cloth just enough to reveal a faded symbol, an old tree wrapped in a crescent shape. The guard's expression changed instantly. "Elder Grove." Caspian frowned. "What's that?" Ronan's voice went colder. A small allied pack, reported fully lost during the frost fever. No survivors. Caspian looked down at the pup in his arms. Then this one was never meant to be found. The guard said, the implication settles heavy. Caspian didn't push further. Not now. The pup needed warmth, not answers. Margot appeared from behind them, breath slightly uneven but pretending she wasn't worried. If you're done uncovering political disasters, give me that baby before he freezes again. Caspian handed the pup over just long enough for Margot to wrap him in a blanket, then took him back. The pup's body was still trembling, but slower now. Alive? He needs a name, Margot said. Caspian looked at him. Small. Broken. Still here. Wren, Caspian said. Because even small birds survive winter. The pup shifted slightly at the sound, like something inside him recognized it. By the time they returned to the tavern, the other pups were already in chaos. Rumble barked like she had discovered a rival. Ash and Cinder circled Wren with suspicious curiosity. Briar checked the forest edge like he expected something to follow them. Ember stayed pressed against Caspian's leg. Caspian sat down and let them adjust on their own. That was always the way. No forcing, no introductions. Just space and presence. Wren didn't resist when Ember curled beside him. That was enough for now. Ronan watched the entire scene quietly. This happens often. Caspian didn't deny it this time. They find me. Ronan nodded slowly, like that confirmed everything he needed to know. They left the tavern before noon. Margot stood outside with her arms crossed, pretending she wasn't emotional. Write to me, she said. And don't let anyone in that fancy place tell you you're less than what you are. Caspian hugged her. I won't. The journey north started messy. Rumble immediately tried to claim the carriage as her territory. Ash and Cinder turned the seats into a battlefield. Briar stayed alert at the window. Ember refused to leave Caspian. Wren slept almost the entire time, waking only to eat a little. Ronan rode alongside for most of the trip, checking in without stepping too close. At one stop, he held out his cloak for warmth. He said nothing else. Caspian hesitated, then took it. The scent hit him immediately and differently than before. Out here, away from the tavern's competing smells, Ronan's alpha pheromones were unmistakable. Pine smoke and cold air, yes, but underneath that, something deeper. Winter frost over undisturbed snow. The sharp, clean smell of a forest after a storm. And beneath all of that, a warmth that didn't belong in the surface notes, like embers glowing beneath ash. Caspian's breath caught. He had spent 2 years believing his own scent was broken, too faint to matter. He had never expected any alpha's scent to affect him. But this Ronan's scent, it didn't overwhelm him the way Marius's had tried to. It didn't demand submission. It invited. Caspian pulled the cloak tighter around his shoulders before he could think about what that meant. His own scent, usually so faint it was almost invisible, stirred in his chest. Not a full release, just a flicker. A response he couldn't control. Ronan's horse slowed slightly, falling back to ride beside the carriage window. His expression was careful, controlled, but his eyes had darkened. You felt that, Ronan said quietly. Not a question. Caspian's fingers tightened on the cloak. I don't know what you're talking about. You do. Ronan's voice was low, rough at the edges. Your scent just changed. Just barely. But I felt it. Caspian looked away. My scent is too faint for alphas to notice. That's what I was told. Ronan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, whoever told you that was measuring you against the wrong standard. Your scent isn't faint. It's specific. It was never meant for just any alpha. Caspian's heart pounded. Then what was it meant for? Ronan held his gaze. I don't know yet, but I intend to find out. The silence between them stretched, charged, electric, fragile. Caspian could still feel the echo of Ronan's scent in his lungs, settling somewhere deep in his chest. His Omega instincts, dormant for 2 years, stirred like something waking from a long winter. He pressed his hand against his sternum, trying to quiet the feeling. Ronan noticed. Of course he noticed. Does that happen often? He asked. Your scent responding to something you can't identify? Caspian shook his head. Never. Not until he stopped. Not until now, Ronan finished. Caspian didn't confirm it. He didn't have to. On the 3rd day, the landscape shifted. Stone markers lined the road. The air grew sharper. And then nightfall keep came into view. Massive, structured, alive with movement. Caspian stared at it. That's a lot. One of Ronan's guards grinned from horseback. Try not to look too impressed. He'll get worse. I heard that, Ronan said without turning. The carriage stopped at the main entrance. Ronan opened the door and offered his hand. Caspian took it, just a step down, nothing more. But the moment their hands touched, something sparked. Not visibly. Not even in scent. But Caspian felt it. Pull, low in his abdomen, warm and unexpected. His Omega instincts, which had been dormant for so long, suddenly sat up and paid attention. He pulled his hand back quickly. Ronan's expression didn't change, but his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. A woman approached immediately, silver streak hair, sharp eyes, controlled posture. Sloane Merrick, Ronan said. Head of Territory Operations. Sloane looked Caspian over once, then the 11 pups behind him. Her gaze paused on Ren, then on the cloth around his neck. Her expression hardened slightly. This is going to complicate things. Caspian adjusted Ren in his arms. He's not a complication. Sloane held his gaze for a moment, then nodded once. Rooms are ready. You'll rest tonight. Tomorrow, you meet the shelters. Caspian looked past her, beyond the walls, toward the north. The pull hit him again, stronger now. Not one. Not a few. Hundreds. Waiting. That night, in a room far larger than anything he was used to, all 11 pups woke at the same time. They turned toward the same direction. No sound. Just knowing. Caspian sat up slowly. Because beyond the safety of the keep, something was calling. And now that he was here, it wasn't going to stop. The first shelter looked perfect. That was the problem. Warm lighting. Clean floors. Soft bedding arranged in neat rows. Bowls of fresh food placed at equal distances. Caregivers moving carefully between groups. Everything was organized, efficient, controlled, and completely wrong. The moment Caspian stepped inside, his chest tightened. The silence was too heavy, not calm, not restful. It was the kind of silence that came when too many children had already learned that no one was coming back. Dozens of pups filled the space. Some curled into themselves in wolf form, backs pressed against walls. Some sat in human form, knees pulled close, eyes empty. A few looked up when Ronan entered, reacting instinctively to alpha presence. But most didn't move at all. Caspian's pups shifted closer to him. Even Rumble didn't make a sound. Sloane stood beside him, voice low but precise. Shelter 1. 138 pups. Age range from infant to early development. All physically stable. Caspian didn't look at her. He was watching a small gray pup sitting in front of a full food bowl. The pup wasn't eating. How long since he touched that? Caspian asked. Sloane checked her slate. 3 days without proper intake. A caregiver stepped forward quickly. We've tried feeding schedules, gentle encouragement, scent stimulation. Stop, Caspian said softly. The caregiver froze. Caspian walked over, then crouched a few feet away from the pup. Not too close. Not reaching. Hey, he said quietly. You don't have to eat for me. No response. Caspian sat down fully on the floor behind him. Ember moved first. The small black pup walked forward, sniffed the bowl, took a small bite, then lay down beside it, like it wasn't a big deal at all. The gray pup's ears twitched. That was it. That tiny reaction. Sloane watched closely. You're not intervening. He's not refusing food, Caspian said. He's refusing pressure. Across the shelter, things began to shift. Rumble approached a group of pups hiding under a table and gave a series of sharp yips, like she was scolding them for something only she understood. Ash and Cinder found a pile of cushions and immediately started rearranging them into a messy structure. 2 nearby pups watched, then one crawled closer, then another. Briar positioned himself near the window, alert and still. 3 tense alpha pups drifted toward him, drawn to his steady presence without even realizing it. Wren, still weak, curled beside a trembling pup and didn't move away when the other flinched. Caspian didn't direct any of it. He just allowed it. That's not structured, Sloane said quietly. No, Caspian replied. It's real. He moved slowly through the shelter, not trying to fix anyone. He sat beside a beta pup who wouldn't look at him and said nothing at all. He told another, you can miss them. That doesn't make you weak. He told a small alpha pup who kept growling, you don't have to fight everything today. He didn't force eye contact. He didn't demand response. He stayed. That was the difference. By midday, something changed. Not dramatically. Not magically. But enough. The gray pup took one small bite from his bowl after watching Ember again. A beta pup leaned against Ash and Cinder's uneven cushion structure instead of sitting alone. 2 omega pups shifted closer together without being told. A caregiver covered her mouth. He ate. One bite, Caspian said. That's enough for today. Ronan stood a short distance away, watching everything with careful attention. We tried to make them recover, he said quietly. Caspian glanced at him. You tried to move them forward. They're still stuck back there. Ronan didn't argue. Sloane lowered her slate slowly. Then what do they need? Permission, Caspian said. To not be okay yet. The words settled heavily. For the first time, Sloane didn't write anything down. Later, Caspian sat near the wall, exhausted. Ember and Wren rested against him. His head leaned back for just a second. When he opened his eyes, Ronan's cloak was draped over his shoulders again. Ronan sat nearby, not touching, just present. You should have woken me, Caspian said. You needed rest, Ronan replied. Caspian looked around. The shelter wasn't healed, but it wasn't frozen anymore either. That mattered. Then Sloane returned. Her expression had hardened again. The council knows, she said. Ronan stood immediately. Already. Lady Verena Thorne is demanding your presence tonight. Caspian frowned. Why? Sloane looked at him directly. Because you're a problem. Ronan's voice dropped. She's testing him. She's challenging your authority, Sloane corrected. Caspian let out a slow breath. Of course, it couldn't be that simple. That night, the great hall felt colder than the shelter. Nobles stood in clusters, watching Caspian openly now, some curious, some skeptical, some already dismissive. Caspian stood beside Ronan, wearing formal robes that didn't feel like his. His pups had been settled in a side room with guards he trusted, but Ember had refused to leave his side, so the small black pup sat at Caspian's feet, glaring at anyone who came too close. Lady Verena Thorne approached with a smooth smile, elegant, controlled, dangerous. So, she said, voice just loud enough for others to hear, this is the rejected Omega His Majesty believes will save our territory. The words hit. Even after everything, they still hit. Before Caspian could respond, Ronan stepped slightly forward. Caspian has done in one day what your methods failed to do in months, he said. Verena's smile didn't break. Temporary emotional shifts are not long-term solutions. Caspian met her gaze. Neither is forcing children to act like they're healed. A few nobles shifted uncomfortably. Verena tilted her head slightly. You speak boldly for someone with no rank. I speak as someone who stayed, Caspian replied. That landed. For a brief second, silence. Then the doors burst open. A guard rushed in, breath uneven. "Your Majesty, Shelter 3 emergency." Ronan turned instantly. "What?" "Omega pup." Silent drop. No response to healers. Everything in Caspian snapped into focus. No hesitation. No fear. Just movement. "I'm going," he said. Ronan didn't stop him. As they rushed out of the hall, Caspian felt it again, that pull. But not distant. Not faint. This time, it was breaking. Caspian didn't remember crossing the distance from the hall to Shelter 3. One moment, he was standing under the eyes of nobles. The next, he was moving fast through stone corridors with Ronan beside him and Sloane already ahead, issuing orders. The pull in his chest wasn't distant anymore. It was sharp, fragile, like something slipping through his fingers. When they reached the shelter, the atmosphere hit him immediately. Not quiet this time. Panic. Caregivers clustered near the back wall. Several pups cried in uneven bursts. Others had retreated into corners, eyes wide, reacting to the fear of the adults more than anything else. Caspian pushed through gently. "Move a little, please." They parted without question. On the floor, on a low sleeping mat, lay a small silver wolf pup. Too still. "What's his name?" Caspian asked. Theron, Sloane said. "Omega pup. 8 months since last shift." Minimal response for weeks. A healer nearby spoke quickly. His scent vanished completely. No emotional response. Pulse dropping. Caspian looked at Theron. Clean fur. Warm body. Everything done, right? And still gone. He didn't touch him. Not yet. "Theron," Caspian said softly. "I'm here." No reaction. Behind him, footsteps. Ronan, controlled, present. "What is silent drop?" Caspian asked quietly. Sloane answered. "When an Omega shuts down completely, their survival turns inward. Sometimes they don't come back." Caspian's chest tightened. "No, not this one." "Stop all stimulation," Caspian said. The healer blinked. "But..." "Stop." The word wasn't loud, but it carried. Everything stilled. From the doorway, Lady Verena's voice cut in, sharp and measured. "So your solution is to do nothing while the pup dies?" Caspian didn't turn. "Stay," he said calmly. "Watch." Then he sat on the floor beside Theron, not touching, just there. Seconds passed. Then minutes. Nothing changed. Somewhere behind him, one of the caregivers shifted nervously. Caspian ignored it. "You don't have to come back all at once," he murmured. "You don't have to wake up because we're scared. You don't know anyone's strength right now." Silence. Then something small. Twitch. Barely there. The healer inhaled sharply. Caspian didn't move closer. "That's enough," he said softly. "Just that much." Behind him, movement again. His pups. They had come. No one called them. Ember slipped in first, then Wren, then the others. Rumble didn't bark this time. Ash and Cinder stayed close together. Briar took position near the wall like a guard. They settled around Theron. Not crowding, just present. The air shifted. Caspian felt it. He let his own scent open slightly, not strong, not pushing. Just enough. A soft, cool presence like moonlight over still water. Theron's breathing changed. Once, twice. Then his body trembled. The shift came uneven, broken in places, but it came. Fur receded. Small limbs reshaped. A pale boy with silver hair appeared where the wolf had been. His eyes stayed closed. His lips moved. No sound. Caspian leaned closer, still not grabbing him. "I'm here." Theron's eyes opened. "Gray. Lost." "Papa," he whispered. The word broke the room. Caspian swallowed hard. "I'm not him," he said gently. But you don't have to be alone anymore. Theron stared at him, then moved slowly, clumsily, until he collapsed into Caspian's arms. The sob that came out of him was small, raw, real, alive. But the moment didn't stay soft. It spread, like something had been triggered across the shelter. One pup started crying, then another. An alpha pup growled sharply. A beta pup bolted toward the wall. 2 omega pups curled into themselves, sentlocking again in panic. The entire room shifted into chaos. Sloane started calling orders. Caregivers moved quickly. Guards blocked the exit so no pup could run out into danger. Lady Verena stepped back, eyes wide. What is happening? They're reliving it, Caspian said, holding Theron steady. They're reliving everything. Ronan stepped forward, stopped, then did something no one expected. He lowered himself, one knee to the ground. His alpha presence dropped, not rose. I am here, Ronan said, voice steady but low. No one is leaving. No one is being taken. The shift was immediate. Not full calm, but enough. Caspian felt something inside him respond. This wasn't just about Theron anymore. It was all of them. He closed his eyes for a second. Then he let it open. His scent, fully, finally, without holding back. Still soft. Still not overwhelming. But wider now. Reaching. Not commanding. Inviting. Ember pressed against the shaking pup. Wren crawled closer to another. Rumble made a sharp noise that somehow cut through the panic better than any adult voice. Ash and Cinder drew 2 pups into their messy little space. Slowly the chaos broke. Not gone, but held. Theron's sobs softened into uneven breaths against Caspian's chest. The room settled, exhausted, quiet again, but different now. Alive? When Caspian finally looked up, Lady Verena had no words left. Ronan stood slowly. His gaze moved across the shelter, then landed on her. You wanted to see his method, he said. You've seen it. Caspian barely heard the rest. He was too tired. Everything felt heavy now, his body, his thoughts, even his breathing. Ronan noticed immediately. He stepped closer, stopped just short. May I? He asked quietly. Caspian nodded. Ronan draped his cloak more securely around him, one hand steadying him just enough. Warm. Safe. Not controlling. Caspian leaned into it without thinking. Then footsteps. Fast. A guard rushed in, breath uneven. Your Majesty, a messenger from Stormcrest Pack has arrived. Caspian stilled. The name alone was enough. The guard continued. Marius Blackwood is at the border. Silence dropped again. He claims the bond with Caspian Wren was never properly severed. Caspian's fingers tightened slightly against Theron's shoulder. And he says, the guard hesitated. Ronan's voice hardened. Say it. He says he's come to take back what belongs to him. The room went cold. Caspian didn't look at anyone. Didn't move. But inside something shifted. Not fear. Not anymore. This time, it felt like the past had come too late. The moment the guard finished speaking, the entire room felt colder. Marius Blackwood. 2 years ago, that name had the power to break Caspian completely. Now it sat in the air like something distant, almost irrelevant. And yet, not fully gone. Caspian didn't move at first. Theron was still in his arms, breathing uneven but steady. Now alive, because he had been allowed to come back on his own terms. Around them, the shelter had quieted again, the earlier panic settling into exhaustion. Ronan's presence shifted beside him, controlled but dangerous. He will not come near you, he said, voice low. Caspian looked up. I need to see him. Sloane frowned immediately. You're exhausted. This is not the moment. It is exactly the moment, Caspian said. He didn't raise his voice, but it held. For 2 years, that part of my life has been unfinished. If I don't end it now, it will keep following me. Ronan studied him carefully. If he pressures you, I step in. I know, Caspian said. But let me speak first. There was a pause. Then Ronan nodded. Once, Marius was brought inside under guard, not into the shelter, but into a private receiving room. No audience. No counsel. Just the necessary witnesses. Caspian changed quickly into simpler clothes. Ronan's cloak remained around his shoulders, not because he needed it, but because he chose to keep it there. Ember stayed close. Rin followed quietly. Even Theron, still pale, refused to let go of Caspian's sleeve. When Caspian entered the room, Marius was already there. For a second, nothing happened. Marius looked exactly as Caspian remembered. Tall, confident, composed. But there was something else now, too. Strain, regret, something less polished. Caspian, Marius said. Caspian didn't respond to the tone. Why are you here? He asked instead. Marius hesitated, then stepped forward slightly. To fix what I did. Ember growled softly. Caspian placed a hand on his head, not to silence him, just to steady him. Then say it clearly, Caspian said. Marius swallowed. I was wrong about you. About the bond. About everything. Caspian nodded once. Yes. The simplicity of the answer seemed to hit harder than any accusation. I didn't understand your sin, Marius continued quickly. It was too faint. I thought it meant weakness. I thought I needed something stronger, a better match for my future, my position. You chose status, Caspian said. Yes, Marius admitted. And I rejected you publicly to justify it. And now, Marius's voice dropped. Now I know it wasn't the right decision. Silence stretched. Caspian didn't feel anger the way he expected. Just distance. You didn't just make a mistake, Caspian said. You made sure everyone believed I was the problem. Marius flinched. I left thinking I was broken, Caspian continued. That something was wrong with me. That I wasn't enough for even my own bond. Marius took another step forward. You weren't broken. I see that now. Caspian didn't step back. But he didn't step forward either. That's the difference between us, Caspian said quietly. You see it now because it has value. Because other people recognize it. Because it matters politically. That's not true, Marius said. It is, Caspian replied. You regret losing something rare. Not hurting someone who trusted you. That landed hard. For a second, Marius didn't have an answer. Then instinct kicked in. A faint wave of alpha presence slipped from him. Not a full command, just pressure. Familiar. Possessive. The kind that used to make Caspian lower his head without thinking. This time nothing happened. Caspian stayed exactly where he was. Behind him, Ronan's presence shifted, colder now, ready to intervene. But Caspian didn't need it. I don't belong to you, Caspian said calmly. Marius froze. The bond is gone, Caspian continued. You ended it. And I'm not going back to something that only existed when I made myself smaller. Marius's expression cracked. I can fix it. No, Caspian said. You can't. And I don't need you to. Theron stepped slightly forward, still holding Caspian's sleeve. His voice was quiet but steady. He stays with us. Ren moved closer on the other side. Ember bared his small teeth. Marius looked at them, then back at Caspian. Something like realization settled in too late. You've changed, he said. Caspian shook his head slightly. No, I just stopped believing you. That ended it. Not anger. Not shouting. Just clarity. Caspian turned slightly. I'm done. Ronan gave a small signal. A guard stepped forward from the door, expression unreadable. This way. Marius didn't resist. But before he could be let out, another guard rushed in with a slate. Your Majesty, the Elder Grove investigation. Ronan's focus sharpened instantly. Report. The guard hesitated briefly, then continued. Records confirmed discrepancies. Several pups marked deceased were never recovered. Reports signed by Allied representatives. The guard read from the slate, including Marius Blackwood of Stormcrest Pack. The room went still. Caspian looked at Marius. Marius's face had gone pale. I signed what I was given. It was administrative. You signed without verifying, Ronan said. I trusted the report. And children died because of that trust, Ronan replied. Marius had no answer. Caspian thought of the forest, of Wren under that fallen tree alone, almost gone. And suddenly the past didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt finished. Ronan turned to the guard. Detain him. Formal inquiry. Notify Stormcrest. As Marius was taken away, he looked back once. Caspian didn't move, didn't speak, didn't need to. That silence said everything. When the door closed, the tension broke. Caspian exhaled slowly. His body felt lighter, not because things were easy, but because something was finally over. Ronan stepped closer, stopping just within reach. Are you all right? Caspian nodded. Better than I expected. You were strong. I was honest, Caspian said. That's harder. Ronan's expression softened slightly. There was a pause. Quiet for the first time since the guard arrived. Everything felt still. Caspian looked at Ronan. Really looked. At the way he had held back. The way he had respected every boundary. The way he had chosen protection without control. I think Caspian started, then stopped. Ronan waited. I think I'm starting to trust you, Caspian finished. Ronan didn't smile, but something in his eyes changed. That's enough, he said quietly. Then the air between them shifted. Caspian felt it first, a warm flow in his abdomen spreading outward. His scent, which had been soft and open since the shelter, began to deepen. Not dramatically, not all at once, but unmistakably. His eyes widened. Ronan inhaled sharply. His pupils dilated. His carefully controlled alpha presence flickered, just for a second, but Caspian felt it. Pine smoke and cold air, yes, but underneath, something raw. Something hungry. The warmth beneath the ash had become a flame. Caspian, Ronan said, and his voice had dropped an octave. Rough. Careful. Your scent just changed. Caspian pressed a hand to his chest. His heart was pounding. I know. It's... Ronan stopped himself. Swallowed. It's not faint anymore. Caspian could feel it now. His own pheromones, usually so subtle they were almost invisible, had bloomed. Not overwhelming. Not cloying. But present in a way they had never been before. Like moonlight becoming tangible. Like the first warm night after a long winter. What's happening? Caspian whispered. Ronan took a step closer, not crowding, not demanding. But his hands were clenched at his sides, every line of his body taut with restraint. I think your body is responding to safety for the first time in 2 years. Caspian's breath caught. Your scent was suppressed. Ronan continued, his voice low and careful. Not naturally. By trauma. By rejection. By believing you were broken. But here, with the pups, with the shelters, he stopped. Started again. With me. You're not suppressing anymore. Caspian's knees felt weak. Not from fear. From something else entirely. Something he had never felt before. His omega instincts, dormant for so long, were awake. And they weren't looking at Marius. They weren't looking at the past. They were looking at Ronan. I can smell you, Caspian said quietly. Really smell you. Not just the surface. There's something underneath. Warm. Like he searched for words. Like embers. Like you're holding back. Ronan's jaw tightened. I am holding back. Why? Because I told you I wouldn't pressure you. His voice was strained. Because I meant it when I said no mating expectations. Because you're not ready, and I won't take something you haven't offered. Caspian's chest ached. Not from pain. From the sheer weight of being wanted and respected at the same time. What if I wanted to offer something? The words came out before he could stop them. Ronan went completely still. Caspian, I don't know what I want, Caspian admitted quickly, his cheeks flushing. I don't know anything about this. About any of it. Marius never made me feel like this. I thought I was broken. I thought Omegas were supposed to feel something during rejection, and I felt nothing, and I thought that meant I was empty. He was rambling. He knew he was rambling. But he couldn't stop. But I'm not empty. I can feel you. Your scent is in my lungs. It's in my chest. He pressed his hand harder against his sternum. It's everywhere. Ronan made a sound, low, almost pained. His control was cracking. Caspian could see it in the way his shoulders tensed, in the way his breathing had gone shallow. Tell me to step back, Ronan said. Tell me to leave, and I will. I'll walk out that door, and I won't come near you again until you ask. But I need you to say it now, because if you don't, Caspian whispered. Ronan froze. Don't step back. Caspian's voice was barely audible. I've spent 2 years being pushed away. I don't want you to go. The sound Ronan made then was not quite human. His alpha pheromones flooded the space between them, not in aggression, not in demand. In response. In recognition. Caspian's knees buckled. Ronan caught him instantly, one arm around his waist, the other bracing against the wall beside them. He didn't pin him, didn't cage him, just held him upright. But their bodies were close now. Chest to chest. Caspian could feel the heat of him through both their shirts, could feel the rapid thundering of Ronan's heart. Caspian, Ronan breathed. His face was inches away. His scent was overwhelming now, pine and smoke and that hidden warmth, all of it wrapping around Caspian like a blanket. Your heat isn't due for weeks. I know, Caspian gasped. This isn't a heat. I don't know what this is. Ronan's eyes searched his face. It's your body waking up, he said softly. 2 years of suppression, lifting all at once. Your pheromones are stabilizing, finding their true level for the first time. And what level is that? Ronan's thumb brushed against Caspian's hip, not grabbing, just resting there. Grounding. Compatible, he said quietly. More than compatible. Your scent, it's not weak, Caspian. It was never weak. It was waiting for the right alpha to recognize it. Caspian's breath shuddered. Are you the right alpha? The question hung between them, heavy and electric. Ronan didn't answer with words. He lowered his head slowly, giving Caspian every chance to turn away, and pressed his forehead against Caspian's. Their noses brushed. Their breaths mingled. I don't know, Ronan admitted, his voice barely a whisper. But I've never wanted to be anything more in my entire life. Caspian closed his eyes. His whole body was trembling, not from fear, not from cold, from the sheer overwhelming rightness of being held. Mark me, he whispered. Ronan went rigid. Caspian, I'm not asking for a bond, Caspian said quickly, opening his eyes. I'm not asking for forever. I'm asking for something that proves this is real. That I'm not imagining it. That I'm not broken. Ronan's expression fractured. You were never broken. Then show me. For a long moment, Ronan didn't move. His alpha instincts were clearly screaming at him to claim, to bite, to make Caspian his. But his eyes were asking permission. Over and over again. Just a scent mark, Ronan said finally, his voice rough. Not a bond bite. Not a claim. But something that tells every alpha in this territory that you're under my protection. Caspian nodded. Yes. Ronan's hand slid from Caspian's waist to the curve of his neck, gentle, reverent. He tilted Caspian's head slightly, exposing the gland where scent was strongest. I'm going to scent you, Ronan said. My pheromones will mix with yours. Anyone who comes near you will know you're under my protection. It's not permanent. It's not a bond. But it's real. Do it. Ronan leaned in. His lips brushed against Caspian's throat. Not a bite, not even a kiss, just the softest press of skin against skin. Then he breathed. Caspian felt it everywhere. Ronan's scent, pine and smoke, and that hidden warmth poured over his scent gland like water over parched earth. His own pheromones rose to meet it, twining together, mixing, becoming something new. Caspian gasped. His fingers curled into Ronan's shirt. His head fell back against the wall. It wasn't painful. It wasn't even overwhelming. It was complete. Like a key turning in a lock he hadn't known existed. Like coming home to a place he'd never been. Ronan pulled back slowly, his eyes dark and dazed. His lips were parted. His chest heaved. "Look at me," he said. Caspian opened his eyes. Ronan's gaze dropped to Caspian's throat, to the place where their scents had mingled. A faint shimmer lingered on the skin, visible only to Wolf's senses. "Now everyone will know," Ronan said quietly. "You're not alone anymore. You're not forgotten. You're under the protection of the Northern Dominion. Under my protection." Caspian touched his own throat, feeling the warmth there. His fingers came away, smelling like both of them. "Why?" Caspian whispered. "Why would you do this? You don't know me." "Not really." Ronan's hand came up to cup Caspian's face, slow, careful, like he was holding something precious. "I know that you stayed in a storage room with 10 abandoned pups when no one else would have them. I know that you walked into a forest and pulled a dying pup out from under a fallen tree. I know that you sat on the floor of a shelter and told children it was okay to not be okay." He paused. "And I know that your scent, which every other alpha called too faint, has been singing to me since the moment I walked into that tavern. Not loudly, not demandingly, just there. Like a light in the distance. Like something I've been searching for without knowing I was searching." Caspian's eyes burned. That's not enough to build anything on." "Maybe not," Ronan agreed. "But it's enough to start." The days that followed changed everything. After Marius was taken away, and the council session concluded with Verena stripped of her authority, the keep settled into a new rhythm. Caspian's position was formalized, Moon Shepherd of the Northern Dominion, with permanent authority over all pup shelters. But the real changes were smaller. Quieter, more personal. Caspian's scent continued to strengthen. Not into something overwhelming, it would never be that, but into something undeniably present. Like moonlight on snow. Like the first breath of spring after a long winter. The pups responded to it immediately, pressing closer, sleeping more soundly, eating more regularly. The caregivers noticed. Sloane noticed. Even the council, stripped of its most vocal opposition, noticed. But no one noticed like Ronan. Every morning, Ronan came to Moon Haven, the new sanctuary being built around the old Shelter One. He didn't interrupt, didn't command. He simply appeared, found a place against the wall and watched. Caspian worked. He sat with pups who couldn't eat. He held pups who couldn't stop crying. He told stories to pups who had forgotten what stories sounded like. And all the while, his scent, their scents, mingled from that night in the receiving room, lingered in the air like a promise. On the 5th day, Ronan found Caspian alone in the garden behind Moon Haven. The pups were napping. The caregivers were on break. Caspian sat on a stone bench with his face turned toward the sun, eyes closed, exhaustion written in every line of his body. Ronan sat down beside him, close but not touching. "You're pushing yourself too hard," Ronan said. Caspian didn't open his eyes. "There are 400 pups who need help. And you're one person. I'm the only Moon Shepherd anyone's found in generations." Ronan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You're also the only person I've ever met whose scent makes me forget how to breathe." Caspian's eyes opened. He turned his head slowly. Ronan wasn't looking at the garden. He was looking at Caspian. His expression was serious, open, vulnerable in a way that seemed impossible for an Alpha King. "You're not going to scare me away," Caspian said quietly. "Good," Ronan replied. "Because I'm not leaving." The air between them thickened. Caspian's scent, which had been calm and steady, began to deepen again. Not a heat, not yet, but something heading in that direction. Ronan's nostrils flared. His pupils dilated. "Caspian," he said carefully, "your pheromones are changing." "I know." "When was your last heat?" Caspian looked away. 2 years ago, right before the rejection. It was never regular. Marius said it was another sign I was defective. Ronan's jaw tightened. Marius was an idiot. He was an alpha. He was an idiot who happened to be an alpha, Ronan corrected. "There's a difference." Caspian almost smiled. "Almost." "Your heat is coming," Ronan said quietly. "Soon. Your body has been suppressed for so long, and now that you're safe, it's catching up." All at once, Caspian's heart pounded. How soon? A week? Maybe less. Caspian's hands trembled. He pressed them between his knees to still them. Marius refused to be near me during my heats. He said my scent was too weak to trigger his instincts, so there was no point. I spent them alone. The silence that followed was dangerous. When Ronan spoke, his voice was barely controlled. "He left you alone during your heats? It doesn't matter now. It matters." Ronan's hand covered Caspian's, warm and steady. "It matters because you deserve better. It matters because you're going to have your first real heat in 2 years, and you deserve to have someone with you who actually wants to be there." Caspian looked at their hands. Ronan's was so much larger than his, but the grip was gentle. Not claiming, just holding. "Are you offering?" Caspian whispered. Ronan turned Caspian's hand over and pressed a kiss to his palm, soft, reverent. "I'm asking," he said against Caspian's skin. "I'm asking if you'll let me stay with you when it happens. Not to claim you, not to bond you, just to be there. To make sure you're safe. To make sure you're not alone." Caspian's throat closed. That's not how alphas usually behave during an Omega's heat." "I'm not most alphas," Ronan said. "And you're not most Omegas." Caspian pulled his hand free, but only so he could cup Ronan's face. He held him there, thumbs brushing against the sharp lines of his jaw, and looked into those winter storm eyes. "Stay," Caspian said. "When it happens, stay." Ronan's breath shuddered out of him. Yes. The heat came 6 days later. Caspian woke in the middle of the night with his skin on fire. His sheets were tangled around his legs. His scent, usually soft, usually controlled, had exploded outward, filling the room with the smell of moonlight and honey and something deeper, something primal. He couldn't think. Couldn't move. Could only lie there, trembling as wave after wave of heat crashed through him. Then the door opened. Ronan stood in the doorway, backlit by the hallway lamps. His chest was bare. His hair was loose. His eyes were almost black, pupils blown wide, alpha instincts clearly raging behind his careful control. "I felt it," he said, his voice rough. 3 floors away. "I felt your heat start." Caspian reached for him. "Please." Ronan crossed the room in 3 strides. He didn't pounce. Didn't take. He lowered himself onto the bed slowly, carefully, and gathered Caspian into his arms. The moment they touched, Caspian sobbed. It wasn't pain. It wasn't even pleasure. It was relief. 2 years of isolation. 2 years of believing he was broken. 2 years of suppressing his own biology because the one alpha who should have wanted him didn't. And now there was Ronan. Warm and solid and real. His scent surrounded Caspian like a shield. Pine and smoke and that hidden warmth, the embers beneath the ash, now a full flame. "I've got you," Ronan murmured against his hair. "I'm not going anywhere." Caspian clung to him. His body was shaking. His temperature was spiking. His Omega instincts were screaming for something he couldn't name. Ronan. I know. Ronan's hand stroked down Caspian's back, slow and soothing. I know what you need, but I need you to tell me. I need you to choose this. Caspian pulled back just enough to look at him. Ronan's face was tight with restraint. Sweat beaded on his forehead. His muscles were coiled like springs. But he wasn't moving, wasn't taking, wasn't claiming. He was waiting. Choose what? Caspian whispered. Choose me. Ronan's voice cracked. Not because your heat is forcing you. Not because you're desperate. Choose me because you want me. Because when this is over, you'll still want me. Caspian's heart broke open. He had spent 2 years being rejected by someone who was supposed to want him. 2 years believing he was unworthy of an alpha's attention. 2 years suppressing everything he was. And now this alpha, this king, was on his knees in front of him, asking to be chosen. I want you, Caspian said. Not because of the heat. Because you stayed. Because you asked. Because you saw me when everyone else looked away. Ronan made a sound, low, broken, almost a growl. And then he was kissing Caspian. Not gently. Not carefully. But not brutally either. It was the kiss of someone who had been holding back for days and could finally stop. Caspian melted into it. His fingers tangled in Ronan's hair. His legs wrapped around Ronan's waist. Their scents merged completely. Pine and smoke, moonlight and honey, 2 things that had always been meant to mix. The heat crested. Caspian cried out against Ronan's mouth. And Ronan held him through all of it. When the first wave passed, Caspian lay trembling in Ronan's arms, tears streaming down his face. Not from sadness. From a sheer overwhelming force of being held. I can feel you, Caspian whispered. Everywhere. Your scent is inside me. Ronan pressed a kiss to his forehead. Good. It's not a bond, Caspian said. You didn't bite me. I know. But I can still feel you. Ronan's arms tightened around him. That's what happens when 2 people are compatible. When their scents recognize each other. It's not a bond. But it's not nothing either. Caspian burrowed closer. I don't want it to be nothing. Ronan went still. Caspian. I'm not asking for a bond tonight, Caspian said quickly. I'm not asking for forever. But I'm asking you to stay. After the heat is over. After everything. I'm asking you to stay. Ronan was quiet for a long moment. Then he shifted, tilting Caspian's chin up so their eyes met. I'm not going anywhere, Ronan said. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Not ever, if you'll have me. Caspian kissed him again. Slower this time. Deeper. The heat would last for days. There would be more waves, more desperation, more moments where Caspian forgot his own name. But through all of it, Ronan would be there. And when it was over, when Caspian finally emerged, tired, wrung out, but whole, Ronan would still be there. That was the difference. Not the bond. Not the claim. The choice. In the weeks that followed, everything changed again, but differently this time. Moonhaven was established as a permanent sanctuary, not just a shelter, but a place designed around healing instead of control. Open spaces. Quiet areas. No forced schedules. No punishment for grief. Caregivers trained to stay, not fix. More pups arrived. Some angry. Some silent. Some convinced no one would keep them. Caspian stayed. That was the difference. Ember became his constant shadow. Ren grew stronger slowly, helping newer pups eat. Theron smiled more often, no longer afraid to speak. Rumble continued her mission of stealing anything she decided was important. Ash and Cinder turned half the sanctuary into controlled chaos. Briar quietly watched everything, always alert. And Ronan didn't rush anything. He stayed close, but never too close. He asked before touching. He gave space when needed. He stood beside Caspian, not over him. One evening, standing at the edge of Moonhaven as snow began to fall, Ronan spoke quietly. "I would like to court you properly," he said. "No pressure. No bond unless you choose it. But I would like everyone to know that you're not just under my protection. You're under my heart." Caspian looked at him, at everything he had done, at everything he hadn't forced. "Okay," Caspian said. That was enough. Months later, Margot visited. She stood at the entrance of Moonhaven, watching hundreds of pups running, playing, living. For once, she didn't have a sharp comment ready. Caspian hugged her. Margot held him tightly. "I told you that room was too small." Caspian laughed. This time, there was no pain in it. That night, Caspian stood on the balcony with Ronan, watching the lights of Moonhaven glow softly in the dark. Pups laughed below. Voices called out. Life moved. Caspian felt it all. The past, the loss, the healing, and the future. "Happy?" Ronan asked. Caspian nodded. "Yeah, I am." Because he finally understood something simple. He had never been defective. His strength had just never been meant for the place that rejected him. It was meant for the ones who needed him. And this time, he had found them.